Will you guys turn your cameras on so we can see your lovely faces?
Your Wi-Fi is doing that thing again.
Good morning, London.
Good morning.
Hi, my name is Mr. English, and I'm the principal at McCormick High School. It's wonderful to start the new year, even though I have to admit it is very different than we ever expected it to be. Before we even considered returning to school, we met many times with our superintendent, Dr. Hembry.
The team began planning even before I came on board, so back in March with our interim superintendent, Mrs. Bagley, and started planning out what the return to school would look like. With that COVID-19 planning team, which included our technology team members, our principals, our assistant principals, our director of food services, maintenance, and transportation, our athletic director, our lead nurse.
We discussed the many different ways that we could return, and we wanted to follow the DHEC regulations as well.
We really had to figure out all of the logistics of what school could look like in the fall, not knowing at that point in time what the guidance was going to be from the State Department, what the guidance was going to be from the CDC, or what the guidance was going to be from DHEC.
But the key component, the most important thing to me, was student safety and staff safety.
So with that being said, we took into account DHEC guidelines and guidelines from the CDC, which outlines how many students we could have on the bus. Because most of our students in McCormick County School District do ride a school bus.
And so we decided to do a hybrid model as well as a virtual model.
With students attending on a Monday, Wednesday, and Tuesday, Thursday schedule. And we had to think about our siblings, and we had to think about families, and we had to match up kids in the middle school with their siblings in the elementary school or the high school to plan which days they would come to school. So this took collaboration from our director of transportation, our principals, our assistant principals, and of course our parents.
I think that is the reason that we have been the most successful, is because our parents have bought into the idea that education is important, even if it doesn't look the same as it's looked in the past.
Good morning, Chase. I'm you.
Good morning.
All right, good morning, Chase. I'm you. I'm you, Chase. Good morning. You can unmute to speak. I need to mute you, Tavis. Chase, you heard me?
Ma'am,
I was telling you to unmute to say good morning.
good morning.
There have been several modifications. The way you present lessons to the children, the wait time, the way you set up your lesson plans.
So the biggest change has really just been like kind of restructuring the way I do class, the way I think about how I organize my curriculum and content.
So I cannot have helpers anymore. I have to do it all. So I just, put it all in a Ziploc bag with their names on it, and they keep it in the classroom. On the last day that I teach them, I have to take these materials back up again from them because I don't have enough for the whole school, and I have to wash and sanitize everything for the next group next week.
This week we're going to talk about rules and staying safe. And as you listen to this song, I want you to tell me some ways that we can keep safe from contracting the disease, okay?
Take our temperatures every day. Wash our hands frequently with soap. Cover our mouths when we cough or sneeze. We've got to stop the virus from spreading.
A typical lesson with the virtual kids would involve keeping those at home engaged while at the same time keeping those in the classroom engaged. In-school methods, many of them have to be eliminated this year. We're not allowed to distribute textbooks. Everything is funneled towards the board. The board becomes the the main component in this style of teaching?
The biggest change I made was converting to a flip style classroom.
So a typical lesson for me, for my U.S. history class, I tried to have them use what is called a flipped lecture.
Definition of a flipped classroom is that students have the ability to do their notes at home. Instead of coming to class, twice a week and spending that entire time just sitting and taking notes, they actually get to take their notes at home.
They should view the lecture at home, and then when they come in class, they jump right into whatever activity I have planned for the day.
We've had to make a lot of changes. We went full technology where the students pretty much do everything, all of their assignments on the computer, whereas previously they would, do it in their math book or be able to turn and talk and discuss things with each other.
So as always, a teacher is supposed to provide what students need based on their level. So I have to make a lot of changes, making it personal for each student. There are quite a few technology challenges, so just making sure each child have their technology. Maybe have to challenge some of my students, but still meet some of my students who are at the lower end.
Some of the problems with the virtual kids are some things we cannot control. For instance, if a child doesn't have Wi-Fi access.
I also find that with some of my students, they're not logging in due to not having internet or Wi-Fi at home.
Some of the kids that's virtual, they might not have a hotspot, the internet might go out.
And they're not getting the real-time reception. Well, I can't control that. All I can do is have patience and try to understand where they're coming from.
So they're still trying to connect with them. After the lesson, I tried to make phone calls at home to see how they're doing. Hey, I didn't see you log in. So that's a challenge as well.
Yeah, I understand. Today's agenda is in Google Classroom. So if you get kicked out, you know what we are doing, what we need to finish.
Communication all day long, and basically maintaining some kind of contact with especially my virtual kids, and then keeping them interested, motivated, where they want to participate.
I still try to make it feel for the students at home that they're in the classroom, showing them love, giving them encouraging words.
If you don't check in at all, you are absent.
I think everyone's had to work on communication skills, because what we take for granted in like little cues of how we look at our students can be, we don't have those when they're virtual. So I know myself and my students, we've had to work on our communication skills.
At times I find it more challenging to keep the kids engaged at home at times, because I know they're not in a school setting. So it is a little challenging to keep them engaged. So that's why I always have to flip through Google Meet to make sure they're still logged on.
Now look, I'm going to show you, okay? To make sure you understand how to do it, okay? I just record one lesson a day in case the student was absent or they missed it. I can go post it in my Google Classroom, and they can click on it and watch it when it's okay for them to watch it.
This is your last question for today, so you can click turn in, but remember, we are not done. We still have more reading to do. Give me a thumbs up when you've clicked turn in and you're ready to keep going with the story.
I'm trying to make my virtual and my face-to-face students do everything the exact same, because when the face-to-face students go home on their off days, they still have to do it as if they're a virtual student.
I've actually not noticed much of a difference. I don't have use of my gym anymore, so I've had to be a little more creative in how I can conduct lessons in the classroom environment while still maintaining COVID protocols, etc. Virtual students generally, especially the older ones, they are tuning in with us from home and all the exercises that we're performing. The virtual students are doing it with us in lifetime at home.
Make it almost your left. Make those elbows.
Okay, one more minute, then I'll take attendance and we'll get started. You'll need a textbook today. Kids at home are at a disadvantage because they're not actually in the classroom, and they have a lot of responsibility to follow instructions without a teacher really looking over their shoulder to make sure they're doing the right things.
If you want to put this into your folder, your notes folder, you click download, go to Google Drive. You're going to then select the folder, and you are going to select your chemistry folder, the folder that you shared with me at the beginning of the year. So that's where you will have access to it. You can just find it whenever you need it, and I will be able to look at it. When you're teaching in class, it's easier to see how students are progressing. If the student understands the concept and he can move forward, or if the student is struggling and needs remediation. In the classroom, it's very easy to see, and you can have multiple of those going on at the same time. Virtually, you almost have to wait for all assessments because you're not really seeing them work. You're not seeing their thought process. There's like a time lag. It takes longer to understand where the virtual students are at than it does the in-class students. That's just my opinion.
I have seen my parents sit there beside their child and help them. And that's something I'm very strong about, having the parent partnership, because the parent and the teacher needs to work together to make sure we provide what the student needs. So with this aspect of what's going on with the pandemic, I see that this will be the good direction for a parent community partnership with the school.
I think overall this virtual school has been a great opportunity to help me see where I can hone in on the most important or essential elements of the lesson and just kind of cut them down so I'm not saying more than I need to say. I'm just getting straight to the point with my students.
When you're virtual, I think our kids miss some of the fine-tune, the finesse of teaching. Overall, all of our students have put forth a great deal of effort to make virtual learning work.
Our leadership here has given us permission to fail, and if something doesn't work, the next day we learn from it and try something different.
Being flexible, being very flexible, because something changes on the fly, or I have to create another assignment that's going to actually upload for them, or, it's just all about flexibility, but it's not too bad.
It's a fluid process. We're learning as we go along, but we're making it work.
At the end of their shift, they had to make sure all the classrooms was, sprayed, wiped down.
We're going to make sure all the electrical rooms are cleaned out and wiped down so that virus might have went up under the door and settled on something in here.
And that came down from CDC, DHEC. Those are things in the State Department. Those are things that was recommended that we do. So that's what we had to do to make it safe for the students and staff. During the day, the custodians did high-touched areas. They had to make sure high-touched areas was clean and sanitized all during the day. And some defoggers came from the State Department. So we had to go out and purchase more to be able to do the job. And we had to do the same thing with school buses. So we'll continue doing that, wiping the seats down as the kids at the end of the bus route each day, and spraying. We had to put plexiglass in all the classrooms. That was a task because I had to have people work on the weekends. It was during the Christmas break when came up with that sign, because after the custodians finished their sanitizing that room, we didn't want anyone to go back in that room until it was time for them to come back off of their break.
Whenever they close the school down and we go virtual, this is what we do. We make sure the children of this county get fed, even if they're not in school. Today, my staff and some of the volunteers from the school. We prepared over 1,300 meals to send out today. The food had to be prepared and packaged up, and that's what the cafeteria staff, that's what we do. We prepare it, package it up, pack it up, and ship it out on the buses. The buses will come down to the rear of the school and pick up everything. We had a total of 9 buses today. They all schedule routes to deliver the food. They all have scheduled stops. So they all have different amount of stops to make. So we have to count out everything and make sure that each bus have the right count to deliver to the children that's on their routes. Well, this week we did twice this week, which was Tuesday and Thursday. But we sent out, on Tuesday, we sent out enough meals for Tuesday and Wednesday. And today we sent out enough meals for Thursday and Friday. So each child got 2 breakfasts and 2 lunches. We also will be delivering food to the classroom whenever school starts back up. So we'll be basically doing the same thing, but except for in-house instead of on the bus system. There's a lot of people work with the kitchen staff and the bus drivers, and Mrs. Morris, she also helped coordinate everything. But basically, the kitchen staff does the majority of the work.
Instead of being discouraged by the limitations that are imposed upon us, it's just the opposite. I'm encouraged by having to do things differently. It's a challenge, it's kind of fun.
While I do still miss seeing my students every day, 5 days a week, everyone has done an amazing job to make sure that our students are still getting a quality education.
We want our students to all be able to return when it is safe to do so. However, we also are very concerned about making sure that they are receiving the best world-class education that we want them to receive here in McCormick County School District.
I like that.